Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, family. Imagine standing on the thin blue line between chaos and calm, night after night, year after year, shielding others from the darkness while quietly absorbing every shadow into your own soul. That was the world of a man who left the pen of a journalist to pick up the badge of a police officer at age 32. 14 hard fought years, he patrolled the streets, investigated the unthinkable, mentored the next generation, and carried the invisible weight that so many first responders bear in silence. Until one day, that weight became too heavy. PTSD and depression brought him to his knees on duty, forcing him to lay down the badge and confront the deepest cost of his service. But from that rock bottom moment, something powerful was born. Out of the darkness, he rose, pen in hand once more, turning his greatest pain into a blazing light for others. Listeners, it is my honor to welcome a true warrior for both the streets and the human spirit, Andrew Mclean, author of the raw and courageous memoir, Beaten Black and Blue, A Journey into the Light. Andrew, thank you for stepping into the conversation with us. Thank you for trusting us with your scars and your light. We're deeply grateful to have you here, my friend.
I'm deeply, deeply grateful to be here, and thank you for that intro. That means a lot to hear. That touches me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. So you moved from journalism, right, into policing at age 32, right? What drew you from telling stories to now living them every shift?
Well, it's kind of funny because my dream of being a police officer started when I was young, like when I was
Like every
back
other kid, right?
watching. Well, yeah, watching Don Johnson and on Miami Vice with the cars, the boats, the taking down bad guys, the glamorous life, and the girls and the cars and all that other stuff. I wanted to be that, but things get in the way. You start going, you go to school, you do all this other stuff. I actually ended up getting into radio and television broadcasting, and when I was there, I ended up making very good contact within the police service because I was the guy out scene, so I did a lot of on scene reporting and stuff like that, and a lot of it had to do with policing. So
Yeah.
it kind of reignited my fire to trade that in and become a police officer. I mean, obviously, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't motivational factors like money, stability, career, benefits, all that stuff, because I now had a family and stuff like that. So I wanted to make sure they were looked after as well. But to pursue that, it was multifaceted. But at the same time, I thought I knew what policing was since I covered the beat, and covered the crime beat. I really honestly thought I knew what I was getting myself into because I was reporting on it every day. So I thought, it'd be easy, good transition. And of course, the rest is history.
Yeah. So you spent
So
14 years, right, on the job in the
14
Waterloo
years, right
region.
on the job in the water.
What were some
Yeah.
of the hottest
And then
traumas you
the
witnessed that
hottest
most people
promise
never hear about?
ever hear about. Yeah, so it's kind of funny 'cause when you go into it with a bit of arrogance. So if I start from the beginning, there's 13 weeks of police college here in Ontario. So when you get hired, you have to go away for 13 weeks and get trained. So it's all in a controlled environment, controlled scenarios. You learn how to shoot your gun. You learn how to drive a car properly. You learn all of that stuff. And you come out of it kind of, nothing's really surprising me. And now I know the law, whatever. I've been through this. I'm confident. It was kind of the first time I hit the streets with my coach officer. And I was like, what the hell? Like,
What is this?
what did I sign up for? What the hell is this? Like I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I'd seen it and witnessed it, in my journalism career. And no, like people talk to the cops like this. This is
Yeah.
what happened. It was a roadside drug arrest. It was just something very, since that I'd done hundreds of times, but that roadside thing where you're playing the game with the criminal and that sort of stuff. So I had my eyes opened up that. But during my career, in 14 years, I was obviously on patrol. I was a field training officer for the young recruits that come out of police college. So I teach them how to do their job. They ride with me for 60 shifts. I sign off or I don't. I was an acting sergeant and detective. So each one of those carries kind of a different role, but each of them also had different types of trauma that I was exposed to. I would say, on patrol, it's the running into the unknown, right? So, I could say, when I was an acting sergeant, I had one call in particular that was very tough. And it was a mother who had lost her husband to cancer. And there were teachers, well prominent people in the community. And she committed suicide in the garage. So I guess the call came in that the kids couldn't find mom in the morning, went to a neighbor's house, and then the neighbors found her in the garage. And so obviously I was the road boss then. And so I had to get my officers to the scene, coordinate the coroner to get there and stuff. But the images that you can't get out of your head is the lifeless body hanging. And then there's also the stuff that comes of that. So It's not the witnessing of that, but it's going through all of the stuff in her house, trying to figure out what led her to this. And you see the notes, the journals, the depression, the I can't continue. Then you have to deal with the kids. So these kids now had no parents. So they're playing happily in the neighbor's backyard. Obviously, the neighbors know what's going on, but I had to go tell them.
Oof.
And as soon as the daughter saw me, she knew what was up. And you know, all I could hear for a long time, and I still hear it is, I still have nightmares about it, is her screaming when I was telling her that, you know, mom's gone. And then I had to deal with her younger brother. So this girl's like 12. The younger brother's like that. My kids were about the same age at the time. And, you know, the pain doesn't register at the time. I kind of call it I recognize now this feeling and I call it the tingle, right? So it's just in the back of your back. It just starts tingling up your spine. And more calls that I was on like that, I would feel them, you know, and that was my body kind of reacting physiologically to what was happening. And so when that started to compound, you kind of repress it, right?
Yeah.
And you don't understand how to deal with that other than squish it down and you got to go on to the next call. Because what people don't understand is that that happened at the start of my day. I still had another 12 hours to go on my shift or 10 hours to go on my shift and another 10, 12 emergencies to deal with, right? And so you just have to on. Now I do recall at that one, the paramedics that were on scene with me left all their stuff there. They just drove away in the ambulance after it was done because they were just so heartbroken. So I dropped their stuff off at their headquarters and I just found a quiet place to cry for a little while. And it's not something I normally did, right? And so where I started to realize that maybe something was off
Yeah.
was the anger that ensued after that. There was a bit of a progression when it came to,
So you'd say
you
that was
know,
the first time, right?
yeah,
That was your first time you
I
sensed, right?
would
The job
say
was
that was the
quietly
first
taking a
real
serious toll on your
time.
mental health?
Yeah, like, you don't wanna tell anybody that, right?
No, you don't
So
wanna tell anybody. As a man,
you
you don't want
dismiss
to,
it.
right?
No, and I think as a man, you don't want to, as a cop, you don't want to, 'cause, you know, there's a certain culture there that it's just part of the job, so that's what you're telling yourself, right? Like, "This is what you signed up for, so it must be just part of the job, you know,
Well,
just push on and everything will be fine."
and professionally too, right? As a cop, right? If you start getting into that, start getting into that feeling, right? They send you to the rubber room, you know, take your gun away. You know, so many things that people don't think about.
And, you know, like, I had somebody ask me, like, after that, like, "Are you okay?" "Oh, yeah, I'm fine." Because you're right. If you say like, "Man, I feel terrible," or you show emotion that you're crying or whatever, or anything really, there's the stigma of it.
Yeah,
So, well, he can't handle it. He can't hack it. So why would he? Why should we push him forward for anything? Because he's obviously he can't hack it. But number two, the shitstorm that would create with regards to, yeah, taking your gun away, the administrative part of it. Like, are they going to take you off duty? Are they going to somehow overblow this and think that you need to go to the hospital for an assessment or something, you know, like there's just no support there, right? So the best way to deal with it at the time, you know, you think, and so many of us are in that position, is to just not deal with it,
yeah, bottle it
right?
up.
Ignore it, bottle it up, and find an outlet for it. But too often those outlets result in very poor decision making and are
Yeah. You know, one of the things too people don't think about is, right, if you do go and say something, what about how the other cops are gonna look at you, right? Your partner, right? Your partner may say, "I don't wanna respond to calls with him. You know, you know, he was crying. You know, he's weak. I don't want him next to me if we're in a gunfight," right? But again, it's the
that's right.
human side of, you know, it's the human toll of things of, you know, how many people can, you know, just think of that being your loved one you walk into and seeing that. And how many people, regardless of the profession they're in, right, have 9 months, 12 months, sometimes 16 months off, right, before they can actually get back to work. And you're not talking about a cop, right? Someone that's protecting and serving the community and that's keeping people safe, right? You think they would have more healthier outlets for the guys and girls in service, right? Because it's vital to keep you guys fine
Right.
mentally, physically, and emotionally, right? But then when they don't do that, you know, when something does happen, say like say you responded to a domestic violence call later in that night, right? And something happened to you and you got, you know, you got hurt. In your head could be that picture of the lady hanging. You're not worried, you know, you're not thinking of the call you're responding to because you're still going through it, right? So there's a lot that I think law enforcement has to do, not just in Canada, but in here in America as well, because they just, it's the attitude of shut up, you're fine, get through it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I would say attempts to try and change that culture, but I believe like a lot of that attempting is basically to appease the public. It doesn't filter internally at all.
No.
It really doesn't. I can
All for a
say that.
photo op?
Well, right. And from my experience, the wellness sort of things was maybe an online course or somebody would come in and talk to you about this mental health spectrum that they call it. You're either green, orange, or you're red.
Yeah,
And it would be the symptoms in there and stuff. And we're like looking around at each other in the room going, aren't we all in the red? Like, I
exactly.
mean, really. And then, it's the night shift. It's night 6 of 7 that you're working. You're walking out to your car like a zombie. You got your C8, which would be like an AR-15 that we carry. Plus your gun and everything else. You're loading it in. You're half asleep. And you walk by a poster saying, did you remember to pack your lunch today? It's like, what? Like, we don't even get lunches, man.
Yeah. And
I
lunch
mean,
is the least of my
we're
worries.
literally hell of a call. Like eating?
Yeah,
What? That's a luxury, right? Like I'd be lucky if I could get through a cup of coffee in 10 hours, let alone come back to the station for my legislated hour and a half lunch or hour lunch, whatever it was that night. We never ever did that happen. And honestly, when I talk to I talk to some university students, I go to some classes and stuff like that, and try to bridge the gap between policing and the young people today, because there's a very huge gap of misunderstanding, let's put it
yeah,
that way, about what we do. And I asked them, I was like, how many cops do you think are in this town patrolling the streets right now? Like, how many do you think are in squad cars right now? Because up here we run singles, right? We don't have a partner beside us.
yeah,
We're alone. The ones were like, I don't know, 40? No, for like a population of this town that's 130,000 people, we might have 9, sometimes 6. Sometimes overnight we have 4, between 3 and 6 in the morning. So one domestic call where 2 of us have to go, now you're down to 2 officers,
yeah,
right? One patrolling the north and one patrolling the south. Somebody gets an impaired arrest, oh my God, now that's 3 officers off the road because one's got to tow it, another one's got to take the arrest, and another one's got to do the blow up, right? So what they don't understand is that now you're just basically, there's no chance to be proactive. There's no chance to do your paperwork. You're just basically sitting there waiting for the next emergency that happens. When you're on that constant state of hypervigilance, and this is just the road I'm talking about, when you're on the road, you can't relax.
yeah,
So when you're going 1,000 miles an hour for 10 hours, how are you supposed to slow down and go home? You can't.
yeah, and
And
that's
it
all
just
your
becomes
body
your
knows
identity.
at that point.
Yeah, and it just becomes your identity, right? So a lot of the symptoms of PTSD and stuff like that, when we talk about what it does to you, it's it happens to you so subtly because you're part of the change. So you don't understand what's even happening to you. You just think it's part of the job. You don't even know why anything's wrong, right? Other than the fact that your heart's beating out of your chest, you can't relax, you're very irritable, you can't pay attention to anything. All of a sudden, the entire public makes you angry because how dare they complain about something because you don't know what suffering is,
Yeah,
and then it just spirals from there, right? But I kind of look at it like the disgruntled cop, right? And everyone kind of talks about the disgruntled, rude, arrogant cop, right? The typical psycho guy, right?
yeah,
The guy. What people don't understand is that we have those, and I'm not sticking up for them. But what I am sticking up for is a guy that actually gives a shit about their job. And the problem is what the public doesn't understand is, like, prior to that traffic stop where he yells at you for running a red light, he might have just been at a suicide or a vicious assault or
yeah,
a murder or or a baby death or something like that, where all of a sudden the problems that now they're confronted with don't matter. Like, they don't matter. If you had your bike stolen from your garage, yeah, it's a big violation to you. But if you for the cop, it's like, why am I here?
yeah,
What am I going to do about it? Nothing. I'm going to write a report and I'm going to put it in the bank and it's going to get forgotten about and your bike ain't going to get found. So, it becomes a very self-defeating cycle of disappointment because, again, a lot of us got into it to help. And when you discover that you can, it becomes very frustrating.
yeah. So take me to that day, right? April 2021. You experienced a full breakdown on duty. Your last day in uniform. What did that moment feel like? And what finally brought you to that edge?
So, um, I had gone back to patrol, so I had left detectives because we were doing a different shift. So we were all going to 12-hour shifts, and they were moving my office to a different city. At that time, I was going through my separation. So in order for me to kind of be there still for my children while working 12-hour shifts, I wanted to stay in the same city I was being a detective in because they were centralizing all of our stuff. I decided to go back to the road. So I did that for about 4 or 5 months. Now, previous to that, I'd been an acting sergeant, lots of field training opportunities and for kids, but I wasn't getting those opportunities. And that day I was brought into my staff sergeant's office. I was on a domestic call, actually, pretty horrific one. And my staff sergeant wanted me to come into his office. So I was met there by my staff sergeant and two other sergeants. And they started with a kind of a discipline talk. So they were angry that the younger officers on the shift were coming to me for advice as a senior constable. They didn't like that because they're like, that's our job. My fault. Because I think they framed it like if there's a training issue, we need to be aware so that we can address it as managers if there's a problem. And I'm like, since the beginning of time, senior constables on the shift are the ones that run the shift. If there's a training issue, I'll bring you into the loop about that. But if it's going to be settled at the constable level, you don't need to be worried about that. Secondly, I was a little annoyed because I'm like, well, if the kids aren't coming to you, maybe there's a reason and you
There's a
should look at
reason,
yourself.
exactly.
Right. But then they brought up my marriage and the fact that it was ending and they knew that I was separated and going through it all and living with my mom and everything. And perhaps pointed to that as a reason why I was perhaps being insubordinate. And it just didn't register to me. So I became like I was angry, right? And I didn't yell or anything, but I told them, look, I've taken a $10,000 a year pay cut to come back to the road. I'm going through a separation right now, and I'm trying to work hard. I'm trying to show these kids how to do their goddamn job because they don't know how to do it.
And to do it
They
the right
don't know
way.
how to that they don't know how to talk to people. They don't know how to relate to people. It's one thing to write a speeding ticket. It's another thing to go into a full-blown domestic, calm everyone down, understand what you need to do, and do it, right? And not make the wrong decision, right? Follow the law and give them the confidence to be able to do it. These kids are just wandering around scared that they're going to make a mistake or not cross a T on their paperwork. They don't let alone whatever it is they also have to deal with. So I kind of gently reminded them of that, but that conversation left me broken, and I was pretty upset because here I am. I've now devoted this 14 years to since 2007 to that point of my life to this. Been a detective, solved major crimes, did all of these things, and all I'm doing is trying to help people,
Yeah.
like not only the public but my fellow officers. So I went back into my cruiser after this, and I honestly didn't know what to do. That vibrating feeling I was telling you about, the tinglies up the back,
Yep.
full blown. I was completely numb because I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I feel like I've lost everything, right? So I met up with actually a recruit that I trained. Very proud of him. He's a great officer. He's in our training branch now, and he's I'm very proud of the development of his career. But he's someone that I respected, and obviously he respected me. I taught him how to do the job. But he looked at me, he came to where I was and he just told me, he's like, dude, you need to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
You need to get out of here. You need to think about yourself and just go home and not come back. You need to go off. There's something wrong. During that time, I was having anger, all that stuff with the public and people not driving fast enough. And a lot of it was envy where I'm like, I just wish I could be that socially unaware of the rest of the public and not have to worry about all this stuff, right? Worry about the kids going to school, getting out on time. All of these things that were just piling up and piling up. And then to have this was the breaking point. So I went home actually to my mom's place. And then since I was on nights, I went and I slept for about, I didn't even sleep, but it was like one of those sleeps where you're sleeping, but you don't think you're sleeping
Yeah.
for about an hour. And I heard my mom get up. I just walked over to my mom and I felt like I was, a toddler again. I just started crying in her arms and I said, I can't fucking do this anymore.
Yeah.
I can't do this anymore. And so I cried. I told my boss, I am not coming in today. I went to, at that time, thank God I was in therapy, and went to my therapist the next day, told her what happened, and then went to my doctor. And my doctor, I had been to a doctor in years because cops don't do that.
Yeah.
I want to know if there's something wrong. That's a man thing. But I went to the doctor because honestly, my heart for a while felt like it was beating out of my chest, and it wasn't feeling good. And he took my blood pressure, and it was 180 over 130. That was resting. So that was 2 hours after we started the visit. So he's like, I can't send you back to work based on that alone, like let
Yeah.
alone whatever. So the process started towards my diagnosis to post-traumatic stress and major depressive disorder.
How
You
difficult was
know,
that for you when they gave
I
you that
forgot what that
diagnosis?
feel diagnosis. It was a kind of a double-edged sword. It was very difficult to hear because I never, ever, ever, never suspected that I would be the one
Yeah.
that was going to happen
You
to.
were always the strong one.
I was the leader on the road. Yeah, I was the leader on the road. I was the one making decisions, man. I was the one going after bad guys. I was the first one in. I was the one helping people. I'd be the one doing the notifications, and then detectives. I'd be the one leading the investigations, doing interviews, doing whatever. Like I was go go go, right? But at the same time, I was surprised, given how I was feeling at the time. I knew nothing about it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I didn't research this stuff. I never was really educated about it or anything like that, but it was a blow to my identity, that's for sure. To be told I cannot work, right? It was like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, when am I going back? What's the process there? And I was told basically, no one knows.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, we don't know, but you can't do it. And I have to say, up here at least, the process of that was easier, I would say, than maybe down in the US. Because up here, it's basically I contacted my employer and the service, and they have a separate department that looks after that, run by civilians. And they're like, "Yep, no problem. We got tons of time in your sick bank. Leave it with us." And we have this thing called the Worker Safety and Insurance Board, which is an Ontario-run thing, where if you get injured on a job, they pay your salary. So basically what they do is they pay your employer since you were injured on the job, and the employer still pays you. So they don't lose money, but you get to keep your paycheck so you can fucking live, right?
Yeah.
And take part in your recovery, which is good. So all of that got accepted. The good thing up here is for first responders, we have the presumption of diagnosis. So once we're diagnosed, they know it's because of the job. For things like that, if you're first responders, that's a good thing.
That's a huge thing.
The process itself is draining. Sorry, go ahead.
I said that's a huge thing, right? Where you're still able to get paid.
You're still able to get paid. Yeah, and contribute to your pension and stuff like that because I'm lucky that that can happen, and I'll be the first one to say that. There are plenty up here like our RCMP, so they're run by the federal government. Really don't have the same. They don't have the same benefits as I do running in a municipal government sort of paid provincially sort of thing. We have much better benefits paid than federal guys and our military too. They get none of this. And for somebody who serves, I look at me as a small service and I kind of hold our military people to a higher standard. Just the way I am. But they don't get the benefits that we do. And, with those guys coming back very injured from doing a lot of stuff too. I mean, the traumas, I'm not here to participate in the Victim Olympics or anything like that, but for them not to have
Benefits and pay.
their due, it's to me, it's criminal because they served.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. They don't know what they signed up for. Nobody does.
Nobody does.
And then no. And just to get punished because you have that. No wonder they stay silent, or no wonder that leads to suicide and suicidal ideation and bad behavior. Like I kind of use the example of, don't get me wrong, our system up here isn't perfect because the reporting of it is quite difficult because, this, like, let's just say they cleared me to work and I went back to work. I'd never get promoted. I would never get any kind of special duties. I would never be back in detectives. So, they'd be just like, wow, he's a head case. I'm going to put him in the land, what they call in our, in some of our terminology is the land of broken toys.
Yeah.
Right. And how demeaning is that? And, having led a bunch of investigations, could I go photocopy some papers for our homicide branch? Great. But I was the guy writing the warrants. I was the guy doing all that shit. Now I'm just a photocopy guy who nobody talks to. No thanks. Like, we have a lot of work to do as a culture to recognize what this really is. And I think our management has a lot of work to do
A lot of work.
in protecting us.
So that brings us to the book, right? Beaten Black and Blue. It's very open about the darkness, right? The personal losses and the slow climb back. How difficult was it to write with that level of honesty?
Very. The writing process actually started, I'm gonna guess 6 to 12 months after I got diagnosed. So it took me that long just to get to a point where I could function. So for the first 5 months, I mean, I slept.
Yeah.
I did not want to take part in the world, did not want to talk to anyone, didn't really want to do really anything. Didn't want to talk to my mom, didn't want to watch the news, didn't want to turn on TV, didn't want to interact with the general public at all. I was getting used to new medications and stuff that they put you on, the antidepressants and all that stuff. So I don't think you're a walking zombie, like really.
Yeah.
But
Going through
you can
it
only
too,
do that
trying
for
to
so
find out
long.
what works medication-wise too.
Yeah, and it's hard, man, and again, unless you've been through it, you don't understand what it does to your head. Like the brain fog, the sleepiness, just getting out of bed is a big deal, like a big deal, because
Yeah.
you start you think about the process, like, okay, now I gotta put one leg on the floor. I gotta do the other leg. Oh, that's a lot of work, I'm
So
just gonna
hard.
just lay here and turn on the TV. Once I kind of got used to all of that and trying to figure out what's going on in my head, I wanted to do some self learning as well. So I started finding out about the researching men's mental health. I started researching PTSD. What are the symptoms? You start looking at this, and YouTube was a great source. Even just some social media where you start learning about symptoms, and you go, "Wow, I'm not alone here." Okay, so this is how I feel. There are other people who feel like that, and there's science behind it. Okay, good, good. All right. Then I started learning about men's mental health because I was also going through a separation at the time, and you know, my own man mental health was on a severe decline. And I never thought about thinking about myself. So there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of, yeah, guilt that goes along with the separation, the providing and the thinking for myself, because you always put everyone else ahead of you, even on the
Yeah.
job. So how can I participate in my own recovery? And so all of that kind of came together with the help of my therapist. I said, I think I should write a book about my experience. And I do, sort of thing. So it was like kind of a coming together of everything that I had done in my life to that point, to get to that point. English major at university, have my honors English degree, was a journalist, wrote lots of search warrants. Now I have the experience of being a police officer. It's almost like everything kind of came full circle.
Yeah.
I've been through the divorce, all of these things, and now all of a sudden I can just take my experience and make it into a meaningful thing. Now, that being said, the actual writing process itself, once I started, I laid out my chapters, but it was like there were some things that were more difficult to write than others, and it was hard to keep the rage from my writing while trying to keep it as real as possible. Like the
Yeah.
chapter about my father was very difficult to write. The chapters about some of the experiences that I had were very difficult to write because it also brought back memories that I had completely forgot about, other horrific shit
Yeah.
that your brain, since I've learned, your brain shelters you from. So it represses those memories, but then they started coming out as well. So I think it was both therapeutic, but it was also eye-opening to understand where I was at. Then learning how many others are in the same position. It was very humbling because I hate talking about myself, but I was always a leader on the road and I felt a need for that. I'd served the public at that point. I was done. Now it was time for me to help the first responders. And another major impetus to write that was just before I was writing it, around the time I was writing it, we had a string up here of first responder suicides. It just seemed like there was one every day between fire, paramedics, dispatchers, cops, military. I mean, it just seemed like it was happening all the
All the
time. And I was like, fuck, I want another one on my watch, man. I don't want to, I'll go through this pain. I'll write it. Yeah, absolutely. And talk about it because it needs to be addressed. And not just band-aid solutions, man. We need real, real fucking concrete stuff because quite honestly, the structure of our society depends on it.
Yeah. So the book, right? It began as a grassroots effort, right?
Yeah.
What has surprised you most about how other first responders and their families have responded to it?
I have to say, honestly, from the first responder community, the response has been overwhelming. Like it's been very hard. Like it's humbling, really. People who don't know each other, who've read the book and part of the first responder community, whether they're family or in it, all can relate. They're like, "Holy fuck, that's me! Like that's me." shit, like, dude, you're preaching. Like, thank God somebody's saying something. It's been very good, and to me, that's humbling. If I can save one life, my job's done. But, you know, the more people I can help and with the help of people like you to spread this word, it truly means a lot because, again, there's no worse feeling, especially in this process, than feeling like you're alone. And it's a very, very isolating process. And you do feel like you're alone. And it's very, very hard for first responders to reach out and get help, especially from people who haven't done it. Very, very skeptical of people. And naturally, we are very skeptical of people, and we don't really believe anyone who hasn't walked the walk or talked the talk. So I felt the need to be able to, since I've walked the walk, I can talk the talk and have frank conversations, honestly, with other first responders who don't believe there's anything wrong. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to convince them that they have trauma, but it's like, why are you dropping 2 grand at the casino a night? Why are you drinking every day and hiding it from your partner or your children or whatever? That's not healthy, right? So, it's about somebody having those tough conversations with them too, because ultimately it's going to save their life.
Yeah.
And
And those are the
yeah,
conversations that we have to have,
those are
right?
the
The tough ones.
conversations that we have to have. Yeah, tough ones. Otherwise, what's the point of living?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, or we have to move forward as a society. We may not always agree, on certain things, but there's sort of fundamental things that we do have to talk about. And if we just ignore it,
It's only gonna
nothing
get
will get
worse.
done, and only gonna get worse. It'll get yes. It's just like ignoring your leaky roof.
Yeah.
The water's still good. There's still going to come in. The mold's still going to form, and it's going to get worse. By the time it's done, you're going to need a whole new roof rather than just doing the patch that was needed.
Andrew, that brings me to the next question,
Andrew,
right?
that brings me to the next question.
What changes, right, do you
What
believe police
changes, right? Do
services
you believe
and
police
society as a
services and
whole need
society
to
as a
make to
whole
better protect the
need to
mental
make to
health of
better
those
protect
who
the
serve?
mental health of those who serve? I think, first of all, from the police services standpoint, I think this goes across other first response things, but I'll just speak from my experience in policing. But leadership is a huge issue. We don't have it.
Yeah.
At one point, our chiefs and what we call up here white shirts, so people that are inspector and above or whatever, um, had your back. They would conduct debriefs. If you screwed up, you learn from it. They'll tell you, as they should. But somewhere along the way, our leadership has turned from policing criminality and enforcing law to politics. And the ones that have suffered because of that change are the guys on the front line actually doing that. So up here, and I know down there, when certain activism started, and we were all told that because of the uniform that we wear, that we're all somehow racist and that we're all this gang of thugs painted with one brush because of the actions of a few, it really took a toll on morale. And and I can tell you, when you're investigating crime and you're dealing with the community who either the victim doesn't want to come forward, the witnesses don't want to say anything because of rat culture and all this other stuff, you can't solve it. Because without a victim, you don't have a crime, right? And then you get accused because you're not solving it because somehow it has to do with geopolitics of the time, and
Yeah.
it's very, very frustrating. So when you saw your leadership giving into that, and then telling them about systemic racism and all this other stuff, or whatever it is, whatever cause it is that they're saying that we're a part of, man, my only concern was solving crime. I don't care about what color of skin they were or anything like that. So when you
Yeah.
hear that, and then it gets reinforced top down through training and all that other stuff, while you are going through what were the early stages of post-traumatic stress and complex post-traumatic stress disorder, you start to question what you're doing it for. It makes you very bitter and disgruntled,
Yeah.
rather than perhaps reining in what I would call a whole lot of virtue signaling and reconcentrating on what the purpose is of us, right? And making it into fighting crime. That's it. That's our privy. That's all we're going to comment on. Now, internally, it used to be, again, leadership was, you were promoted based on your leadership abilities. So based on your experience, based on, if you've done the role, then you get promoted in an acting capacity or whatever. And that doesn't happen anymore. You could do that role in an acting capacity for 5 years and get still passed over for promotion for people who haven't even investigated their way out of the paper bag. Then all of
Yeah.
a sudden, these people that haven't investigated their way out of a paper bag are leading specialty units. They're going over your search warrants and stuff, and they never ring them, right?
Good old
So
politics.
their concerns about overtime, like our conversations and arguments about overtime when we just had a shooting. Like, there's a gun, shooter, and a car involved out there. What are you supposed to do? Go home?
Yeah, exactly. You're
Well,
worried about the
can't do
money.
that, right? It's just, yeah. So it turns into constantly fighting. So when you're fighting public, you're fighting the uppers, you're fighting all of these things. It turns into a powder keg of a lot of disgruntled cops who like to solve crimes. So if you're good at what you do, you're going to stay where you're at, but you're going to be overloaded with cases all the time.
Yeah.
My my true belief when it comes to promotion and stuff like that was the question needs to be asked of people this person who's going for promotion would work with, let's just say they're equals at the time. If they were acting sergeant, if they were doing whatever, would you follow that person into an active shooter situation? So if somebody's shooting up a school, would you follow that person in? If the answer is no, they should not be promoted.
Yeah.
We don't go by that anymore. It's like if you can sewer someone and it's all about head hunting, even up at the upper ranks, they head on each other because they all want to be the next one that gets promoted. That's what it ends up being. You're either on this person's side or you're on that person's side. And if you're on this person's side and they don't get ahead, you're screwed.
Yeah, and you're supposed to be on the side of the public.
I mean, just completely lose focus of everything, right? Uh, it for me, it's it's a dual-headed hydra. And then as far as the public goes, then also, again, internally is the stigma behind mental health. We have to be more open as officers and as peers to have each other's backs seriously. I mean, give that serious consideration. And I was listening to another podcast here local, like here in Ontario, about a husband who lost his wife to suicide, and she was an OPP officer, so a provincial police officer, and he had said the night that she had died, their detachment commander came to the house to deliver the news with a couple other higher ups. They were at his house for 10 goddamn minutes before they left.
Crazy.
I mean, I've been in houses myself for the public for hours,
Hours.
hours,
Yeah.
until somebody could come or whatever, and I have calls to take, right? I still have other investigations to do. And I don't mean to sound cold when I say that, but I mean, none of those matter in those moments, right? If you're a detachment commander, what else do you have to do at 11 o'clock at night?
Yeah. That's supposed to be your family.
Leading, well, leading by example.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, holy shit, what a novel concept. For me, it's actually, if I can encapsulate all of this rambling I've just done regarding this, because I feel quite passionate about it, into one big thing. I wish that policing would have their leaders or leaders that lead by example.
Yeah.
Just lead by example. That's it. Do what you say and say what you do, and don't make people do what you wouldn't do.
So true.
That's it. And then
What's
as far as the public goes, oh, sorry, go ahead.
what's one truth about mental health, right? You wish you understood earlier.
One truth about mental health, sorry, that I wish
That you wish you had understood earlier.
that it's not selective on who it chooses to affect.
Yeah.
I think it's the invincibility factor, because when you're young on the job, you think you're invincible. You're never going to be that guy. You don't have to think about it, right? Like, I mean, I'm going forward in my career. I'm doing what I got to do.
Yep.
No, it chose me. It chose me very, very hard.
Yeah. Well, I think one of my
You put a
biggest
brave
things
face
is
on it.
realizing, right, it's okay not to be okay. But
Oh,
also, right,
yeah.
to seek the treatment, seek the help, right? And maybe not even professionally, right? Talk to a coworker, talk to a friend, talk to your mom if she's still here, your dad if she's still here. But have that conversation, right? Don't bottle it up, because when you bottle it up, you're just pushing it down for more shit to be pushed down. It's almost become normalized, right, here in the States and up there in Canada, that if you're on the front line, right, serving the public, you can't be weak. You can't show emotion, right? You can't go talk to a therapist. But why can't you?
That's right. Exactly. It kind of reminds me of, like, there was a friend of mine who's also off, and so he was a little bit further on in the process than I was after I went off, and I was quite resistant to medications and stuff like that at the beginning, because I just, again, couldn't believe that I needed them. What good will it do? And blah blah blah. He's like, just fucking take them. And I'm quoting him. Why are you suffering still?
Yeah.
Just take it.
Yeah.
let these people do their jobs, man, because otherwise you're just going to keep suffering. And that's true. That's a great point because, you can't be afraid to get the help. You
No,
have to.
and it doesn't mean you're any. I say it all the time. It doesn't make you less of a man to ask for help. To me, it makes you
It
less
makes you
of a
more of a
man
man.
not to ask for help.
100%. Somebody I greatly admire once said that vulnerability is a virtue. The absence of vulnerability is not good.
Yeah,
Right, like, a lot of people think that vulnerability makes you weak. It
yeah,
really doesn't. It's a sign of strength,
strange. Yeah,
and it's kind of funny because, in my doldrums when I was really about to end it all, I could not possibly think in that moment that I'd be in the position I'm in today, talking to you.
yeah,
I've written a book, all of these things, and when you move further on in your recovery, you also have to take time to stop, smell the roses, look around you, and look at how far you've come.
yeah,
Right? It's not easy. It's very difficult. And I almost call it a gift because there's not a lot of people in the world that can say that you've accomplished what you've accomplished when you decide to put your mind to it and put yourself first and get your shit together.
yeah.
There's nothing more rewarding. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So, Andrew, I got two more questions before we finish up, right? So, for any first responder, veteran, or listener quietly struggling right now, what is the single most important step that they can take to begin their own turnaround?
I think it starts with listening because it's easy to say you should be self-aware enough to understand if you're struggling, if you're doing these behaviors, but you really need to sit on the edge of your bed and have a very, very difficult conversation with yourself and listen to yourself. So be honest. One of my and I'll just use an example like drinking, for
Yeah.
instance. What's leading you to do that? Why are you drinking all the time? Why are you abusing a substance? Why are you doing these things? Are you doing it, first of all, is the first question to answer. Yes. Okay. Why? Well, it makes me feel good or it makes me forget shit. Okay. Does your family know? No. Are you fighting it? Be honest. Yes. Okay. Because out of just that alone, if your conscience is telling you need help and you reach out to someone, I guarantee you they're going to help you. Or they're not your friend. They're just an idiot. If I'm sure that a bro is going to help a bro. A wife is going to help a husband if you've got a great relationship. A kid is going to help you if you whatever. And I guarantee you those people see it. Do you want to be here or not?
Yeah.
You ask yourself that question and have that hard conversation with yourself because people are going to tell you to change, 100%. And to go and find that because everything just kind of sprouts out of that. Well, you find your help, you get your meds, you do whatever, but you have to constantly just think for yourself, and understand that doing that isn't selfish.
Yeah. Where can they, for the listeners, where can they find the book?
The book's on all Amazon platforms worldwide, so whatever country you're in, it's called Beating Black with Blue: A Journey into the Light. Yeah, it's also on all the KDP, the ones like Walmart and stuff like that, but mainly on Amazon for now. And yeah, it's been quite the process so far. New to the whole publishing thing, it's a self-published thing, and like we were talking about, it's a grassroots movement that I kind of started here. Is just seeing the need and. It's kind of blossoming into what it is now, and I'm truly humbled by that. Yeah,
So,
it's cool.
last question, right, Andrew? On the hard days, what keeps you committed to this advocacy work? And what's next for you?
So there are still hard days, and honestly, I bring up even just 2 days ago, I had one of those brain fog days, and it's one of those ones where like your brain is just so foggy you can't really think, but it's so edgy. So I call it the restless two, where you feel like you got to do something, but you just can't. Like
Yeah.
it's very odd. Everything takes like hours longer than it should to do, right? Things even you enjoy. It's like I don't want to fix anything today. I don't want to do anything. And and so you do have those days. So the way I cope is I got to get myself moving. I know that, right? So I'll go up, I'll get a walk, do something like vacuum even, like just something, right, to get my head going and kind of snap out of that haze a little bit.
Yep.
What's next for me? I'm writing book number 2 right now, and it's kind of a build on to what book number 1 was, The Journey into the Light. It's more covers the symptoms and kind of what my recovery has been to this point. So one, I just finished a chapter called like You're Not What You Used to Be. and it kind of goes through the experience of, now me just living a life and going, seeing the overdose on the street or whatever, and what it kind of does for you. So I'm just looking to build on this help and be a resource. And like I said, anybody who's out there, come to my Instagram handle and message me. People know I'll get back to them as much as I possibly can. The responses have been overwhelming, but if you need help, let me know.
Perfect. So, Andrew, I want to speak straight from my heart to yours. Thank you.
Mm.
Truly, thank you. Thank you for every quiet moment you stood in the gap for all of us. Thank you for facing the darkness inside yourself with such raw honesty and courage. And thank you for writing Beaten Black and Blue, for turning your deepest pain into a lifeline for so many of us who are still struggling in silence. Your story has touched me deeply, and I know it's going to touch thousands more. You're a good man, Andrew. Listeners, if Andrew's words have stirred something in your heart today, whether you're a first responder carrying heavy burdens, someone who loves one, or anyone who feels alone in their pain, please listen to this. Take one small, brave step forward today. Pick up his book. Read even a few pages. Share it with someone you care about. If you're hurting right now, reach out to a friend, a family member, a counselor, or a support line. You do not have to carry this alone. Healing often begins with one honest conversation. Andrew, your journey from brokenness to light has given so many of us hope. Thank you for reminding us that no matter how dark it gets, the light is still waiting. Our door is always open, my friend. Until next time,
Mine
family.
too for you.
Be
Thank
gentle
you so
with your
much.
own hearts. Brave enough to speak your truth and kind to everyone around you. Healing is possible. Hope is real. We love you, and God bless. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you.